Medicare plans do not have the same open enrollment like Medicare Advantage or Medicare Part D as in Ghana. Thank you. They do not. They don't work that way, at least as of now. Stay tuned.
Do they typically have a contract period then? Or can you switch any time?
You can switch any time, but again, please understand that you might face underwriting in the process. If your health is good, you don't have to worry about it. The health underwriting on Medicare supplements is not quite as intense because they are a supplement. But they know, too, if you have some serious, shall we say, managing type maladies, that they may be reluctant to pick it up. But each company is different, you know. They have they're just a bit different, each one, as to how they view risk. And so how one may look at things might be quite not the same as the other. Yes, sir?
Do you happen to know the enrollment period for Medicare Part D?
It's going on right now.
Till?
I believe it is December 7th.
So if we're going to go with a supplement on Medicare Part D, that decision has to be made by December 7th. So that you can enroll for Part D.
You can enroll for it, yeah, that's right. Now that's another good question. That lends me back to the qualifying event scenario too, that would they be willing, they meaning the feds, to expand that for this group because they have such short notice, should they feel like what's coming is not necessarily in their best interest. I don't know that. Let me see what I can find out on that. But yes, from a standard perspective, yes, the 7th would be the deadline. You're right. Yes, sir.
I just want to make sure I'm reading this correctly.
Sure.
This chart.
I know there's a lot in those little columns there.
When you're saying, or when they're saying that between the 61st and 90th day, they pay up to except for $296 per day that we pay.
Right.
Then what are they covering?
The Y means yes. That means they're going to pay that $296 a day. Wherever you see a Y, that means the Medigap plan will pick that up. And I apologize for the print, but some of the asterisks or whatever at the bottom are important to kind of get to read as well. You may need to go over that a few times. But the Y means normally, yeah, we're there for it. Yes, ma'am.
What is the Medicare Medical Savings Account?
The Medicare Medical Savings Account is almost like a health savings account in that you can open up an account at a bank, an investment firm, et cetera, and put dollars into it and use it, to reimburse yourself. Some people do that if they buy the high deductible, et cetera, et cetera. You don't hear much about it because the HSA, which is for under 65, that can be taken with over 65, has begun to replace it, and also the fact that our seniors usually don't have the extra money around to put it in the account. But that's what that is. That's a good question. It's just unfortunately not a program that is visited that much anymore. Yes, sir.
Can you use that program with Medicare Advantage?
To my knowledge, I don't know. You'd have to ask Medicare Advantage.
Okay.
I don't know. Yes, ma'am.
The pricing between ARPS, United Healthcare, and United Healthcare, separate company calling them, are different.
Correct.
That United Healthcare without ARPS support is less expensive, it appears, for all of the different.
Are you talking about the Medicare Advantage and the United Healthcare?
No, I'm talking about with that you buy the insurance as a Medigap policy through Medicare. For United.
It's really very interesting. I have to give you credit. I've not really looked at UHC's non-ARP rates right now. Well, I don't want to. There's probably some load in there for all of the expenses that UHC may incur by being an ARP representative. They also, with ARP, will offer you a number of discount programs and memberships for this and that. So you've got some frills in there, and how much of that United Healthcare may feel that they've got to pass on a little bit. In all retrospect, most people probably won't take the time to look at their straight-laced Medigap plan as opposed to the one where they underwrite for ARP. So that's
with a membership in ARP, I can get all of those specialties.
Right.
So I can separate that out for.
That I don't know. You'd have to talk to them on that. Yeah, you would have to talk.
Now the other thing is Cigna, which we're currently on. The Cigna company, that's also
No. Please understand with Cigna, ladies and gentlemen, if you didn't know this, Cigna, I don't want to say they were just the administrator, because I think they played a role in designing the plan, paying the claims, et cetera, and I don't know how much the state of Illinois paid them. They did not fund CIP. That was not their money. That was the state's money. So, as I understand it, some of the lengthy delays in payment were not due to Cigna. Now, I'll be honest with you, from a Medigap perspective, I'll be honest, we don't run into them much. They tend to rather work with large employer groups. They have a good under 65 individual plan, pretty good, and a small group plan, but they're not that aggressive in the Medigap, in my opinion. But yeah, that's the reason why they weren't funding it. They often had to wait for the money to pay those claims. What baffles me is that, I guess, that's going to continue to be the case for the early retirees from 55 to 64, because I understand it moving forward. If you're over 65 but your spouse is not, you can't move into this new program if you want to. You've got to wait until everybody in your household is 65 or above. So there may be some still in the SIP plan under 65, whatever. More questions, please. Your thoughts, criticisms? Is this fairly clear? I don't like talking too much and too loud.
Question, what was the December 7th deadline?
Pardon me, I'm sorry.
What was the December 7th
The
deadline?
December 7th deadline right now is to make a decision on Medicare Part D, and also if you're interested in the more traditional Medicare Advantage HMO and or PPO. Not the one the state is offering. That's a special edition. But your traditional one. Mostly in this area they're offered, well, through Blue Cross. These are MAs. By the way, it's a new MA this year for Blue Cross. This is their first year they're delving into that. Humana and, well, actually Aetna and United Healthcare. But that's what those dates are for. We have a special date, what is it, December 13th? Is that the date?
Yeah.
And also a special start date of February the 1st. Most of these are always, and I understand that the next year it will be January 1 in line. Yes, ma'am?
Gary, if we wanted to leave CMS, the SIP plan, and we wanted to go back to traditional Medicare and a Medicaid, would we have to do that by December 7th?
Probably, no, you don't really have to, because that due date is not, and that's an interesting point. I was thinking that today. If you decide to go with the Medigap or Medicare supplement, so you either say no, is Springfield going to allow you to stay on SIP through January 31?
That's what this says.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's supposed to be February 1st.
So then you'd say, okay, then I don't need to get this other plan activated unless I want to till February 1 if you go
Well,
out.
the exception would be D.
Indeed, yes, that's right,
Let's
exactly.
Okay, suppose you do sign up for the CMS plan, and after 3 months, this is not right, not what you want. Can you then go out and go back to original Medicare?
I believe you can under the trial right, Pat. I believe you can. It's
That
very
will
tricky.
apply?
Yes.
According to that paper that you say is not accurate, it says you're locked in for a year.
Well,
Yeah, that's what, one of the things that
I don't totally disagree with the author of that, but I thought it was a rather, wow, put that kind of stuff in. I was startled.
Who was the author?
It's a gentleman from an organization in Texas who has a large senior products marketing organization. I have no idea who he is. I've asked a couple of our folks because two things baffled me. One is he's from Texas, and the other one was the date of the article in the Illinois State Journal Register in May. Maybe I'm wrong. You guys are. I thought this all came about pretty late in the summer or early.
Yeah.
What did he know?
He didn't know that. He couldn't have known any of it.
Yeah, but his comments in there, Pat, were kind
Getting
of,
back to your question. So if you go with the Medicare Advantage plan, then you're not on Medicare,
that is correct.
all right? If you come off of the Medicare Advantage plan, then it's not a qualifying event because you chose not to, so is Medicare gonna let you enroll at that?
Well,
There's a thing, okay.
I'm sorry, Pat.
No, go ahead.
What I need to revisit again, and it gets very tongue twisting, is if you come off of it, can I just for a second? I know there are some examples in the back, everybody. You could take a look that I stapled about guaranteed issue. And I admit, some of this was in a CMS, et cetera, but it says, you join the Medicare Advantage plan or programs of all-inclusive care or of all-inclusive care PACE. Okay, this is when you were first eligible for Medicare A at 65. Okay, that doesn't. Or, no, that doesn't apply either. Yeah, that doesn't apply either, but that's Medigap. Your Medigap insurance goes for well, that's, yeah, we know that.
There was information that I read today, Gary, that said that the insurance attorneys are believing that this is not going to be a qualifying event.
That's our feeling too, I'm sorry to say. And for whatever reasons, the insurance attorneys may have the same reason we do, there may be something else. But the thinking was with us, it's a replacement and not total disappearance.
So if you should decide to go, tell me if I'm wrong, if you should decide to go with a Medigap plan that is not guaranteed issue and you have pre-existing conditions, then be sure to allow enough time to get into those programs. It sometimes takes 3 weeks or so,
Right.
So you can't wait till December 7th.
Right.
is my-
Yes, sir.
Plan, you're saying, Part D decision has been made prior to the 7th,
That's
as it stands right now.
as it stands right now.
Can you, though, go into that plan to have that plan take effect February 1?
It will, as it stands right now, it'll take effect when it normally would take effect, and that would be January 1, as far as I know right now. I don't know of any exceptions.
Now, does that create a problem, though, in the fact that we already have coverage up until January 31st for drugs?
It may or may not. I don't want to editorialize too much, but that may be one of the reasons why the powers to be set this thing up the way they set it up, to make it difficult. That's just me editorializing. I don't know. I'll be honest with you.
I
I'll
can
try
just
to
see
find
where
out, though.
carriers could be fighting over who's going to pay the bill,
Well,
or not pay the bill, right?
right. No, there won't be any fight. They're not going to do that. They're not going to do that.
I think we'll take a couple more questions.
Right.
I have one.
Yes.
You as a broker or other brokers, how do you base your charges?
We don't base it. We get paid a commission out of it. There's no additional cost to use us. Pardon?
By the Medigap policy.
Right. No, they pay us a commission.
Okay.
It has dwindled quite a bit. I won't go into that, but yeah, we get. There's no differentiation of your price whether you use us or not. I'm hoping some of you will call upon us to just sit down and quiet. When you're in a large audience, it's difficult to address it. But there's some really great points you brought up tonight. Some of the date conflicts are very important. Yes, ma'am.
I called Blue Cross Blue Shield.
Okay.
And I was connected with a gentleman who said that he was indeed a representative for Illinois and licensed for Illinois,
Right.
and understood our situation.
You may.
And I asked him about the Medicare Part D, and he said with their plan is we didn't have to worry about dates when our plan, if we selected to buy a Medigap, Medicare
Part
D
D Medicare,
card,
right.
then they would just attach it at the date we purchased it, and it could, it didn't, that December 7th, none of that applied.
Would they attach it at the date you purchased it or the date that your current plan would cease, which would be the 1st of February.
We have either option. We
Okay.
can start February 1st,
Okay.
or we have 63 days beyond
Well,
that.
okay, be very careful with D, be very careful with D and the Medicare sup when you get into these 63 days. Please, one is not Medicare and one is. I'm not saying that you're wrong, but please, these 60 and 63 day entitlement periods usually refer to the gap insurance and not to Medicare. But she brings up a good question. If you go online and you find a PBM, that's a pharmaceutical benefit manager, maybe ARP, maybe Blue Cross, maybe the plan like I have, Silver Scripts Plus or whatever, they'll have people you can talk to. And you can explain to them what the situation is here and see if they are willing to wait until February 1, which would be, beyond December, so beyond January 1, and just, et cetera, et cetera. They might say you still have to sign up by 12/1, but we'll wait till 2/1 to activate if you've got something in force already. I don't know that, but I think it's worth it. I think she brings up a good point indirectly there. This is a unique situation based on dates and what's being offered, so you need to do a little homework in that regard if you feel it's worth it. Yes, sir.
Yeah, this goes in a little different direction. It's my understanding that if you decide to move away from the state, that's a permanent move.
Yes, that's what I'm
And
saying.
I think that's something you need to think about.
I agree. No matter how you may feel about it, whether you feel it's punitive or not, doesn't matter. It's still a factor. Yes, it is. Absolutely. You have to do what's best for you. It's that simple.
And on the other hand, if you stay with the state for a year, you could still move.
The only other thing I want to mention, I shouldn't even be mentioning this, but since it was brought up in Joliet, and I don't know, was anybody there in Joliet the other day?
Yep.
Do you recall when the director said, and we'd heard about it through the agency, that, the rates for the MAs are very reasonable. There's no question. My wife is on SIP, and I look at the differentiation. It's attractive. I mean, you can't. On the other hand, though, if I remember the state director mentioning beginning in 2015, this has been our understanding at the agency in accordance with the Affordable Care Act, those subsidies from the feds, which are about 11,000 enrolling now, are going to continue to shrink to up to 17 when they might not be there anymore.
Correct.
Now, the way things are going with health care reimbursement delivery in this country, you can't worry about 17 maybe, but the point is that this program, they're not going to tell you that, in the promotions, that's a factor to think about.
Gary, if that.
I don't know.
If that comes to pass.
Yeah.
Something has to happen. Our rates have to skyrocket or
That
something.
is the thinking, but who knows?
Yeah.
But that's the
Would
thinking.
we
Pat.
then be eligible to, if that happens, to then come out of the
Pat,
CMS
Pat,
plan?
it is hard to say.
Yeah.
It's just,
Too
I
difficult to
can't,
predict, yeah.
that's much too far down the road, but apparently that is a realistic scenario that's already written into the bill, into the law.
Well, don't you think it's great that we all at least have a college degree or something so we can fight it? It's a struggle, but on the other hand, you can't make too many mistakes. You're either going to do the Medicare Advantage or you're going to do Medicare. And I know it's confusing, but we've heard from some people who are just so anxious over this, and we want everyone to just take a deep breath. And as Bob pointed out, if you do go with the state plan, you could change it again down the road. Isn't it helpful sometimes to learn what other people are deciding to do? And in that regard, I wanted to draw your attention to our website. Notice that if you go to insurance updates, there's a new section in here where our members can say, for example, there are colleagues' choices. Peter Gart has already announced what he's going to do, and Elizabeth Minute. As you make your own choices, wouldn't it be helpful to the rest of us if you would write a sentence about what your choice was and send it to Sarah Stark? Her email is readily evident, and she will post it for the benefit of all of us, so I encourage you to do that. Please stay around and enjoy each other's company and decisions, and let's get through this.
One other thing, I'm a marketer and I'm proud of it. I stapled my card to your packet. I welcome your calls. I will say this, if you decide to work with a broker or another broker, please make sure that you feel confident that they're at least schooled in these products. It's important. It's important to you. Don't worry about us. This is very critical for you. And I have your utmost respect in that regard. But do feel free to call. You posed some very, very, very thought-provoking questions tonight. And I hope I can get you some answers, beginning with the qualifying event issue.
Because I don't know how to turn it on.
I don't know. I'm sorry to say it, but I don't know how else